"You're under arrest, old man." The cuffs snapped tight around his wrists as the bailiff yanked him forward, the metal biting into his weathered skin. James Harlan, 66, didn't flinch, just stared ahead, his eyes like steel, unyielding in the dim courtroom light. Whispers rippled through the crowd. A juror smirked, dismissing him as a washed-up veteran with a grudge. The prosecutor, Robert Kane, paced with contempt, his voice laced with prejudice against elderly vets, labeling Harlan a relic threatening society with faded threats. "He could drop me from 800 yards, the victim claimed, amplifying the injustice. Harlan remained silent, his breath steady, pulse calm, as if the weight of something hidden anchored him. No one noticed the faint bulge in his pocket. A medal from a secret rescue mission, its edges worn from years of quiet burden. Tension thickened as witnesses twisted truths, their stories fueling Kane's biased closing, the air heavy with judgment. But a distant relative in the gallery shifted uneasily, recognizing a familiar resilience in Harlan's gaze. The judge banged the gavel, escalating the farce. But what nobody knew was that a black SUV sped toward the courthouse, carrying a truth to shatter every prejudice. Before we continue, if stories of quiet dignity and unsung heroes resonate with you, type honor below. And tell me where you're watching from. This story of James Harlan reminds us that true leadership is earned through service, not demanded through rank. I rate every comment. The courthouse in rural Georgia was a modest brick structure, squeezed between a library and a diner, where locals still greeted strangers with nods. That morning at 8:45 a.m., the parking lot filled with pickup trucks and news vans, drawn by whispers of a routine scuffle gone viral. James Harlan, a reclusive U.S. Marine veteran living in a wooded trailer, had been arrested after a gas station confrontation. No weapons, no blood, just heated words with a younger man who claimed fear for his life. From the bailiff's perspective, Tom Reynolds, a burly ex-cop, Harlan's eerie calm made him uncomfortable. "Most guys fight or beg," Tom muttered under his breath, the metallic clink of the cuffs echoing in the hallway. Harlan's public defender, Sarah Ellis, barely looked up from her notes, frustrated by his silence during their brief meeting. "No family, no witnesses, no defense?" she had asked. Harlan offered only a nod, his fingers subtly tracing the outline of the medal in his pocket. A breadcrumb of his hidden backstory from a classified Fallujah rescue mission where he saved a unit with sniper precision. The trial moved quickly. Testimonies vague but damning, the room smelling of old wood and tension. Perspectives began to layer. Sarah saw stubbornness, Tom saw potential threat, but the truth simmered beneath, waiting. Within minutes of the trial's start, the escalation ignited. Robert Kane, the prosecutor, leaned into his opening with clear prejudice against elderly veterans. "Ladies and gentlemen, this man may have served once, but relics like him think faded glory excuses intimidation. He's dangerous, a threat hiding behind age." The words hung in the air, thick with the scent of stale coffee and polished oak benches, murmurs rippling like a gathering storm. From juror Emily Carter's perspective, Harlan appeared just another bitter old-timer. Her initial smirk fading as she noticed his unyielding posture, hands steady despite the chains. A subtle breadcrumb stirring doubt. Harlan sat motionless, chains clinking softly with each breath. The medal's weight in his pocket a tactile reminder of his secret Fallujah rescue mission, another breadcrumb hinting at untold resilience buried beneath the surface. Witnesses escalated the narrative with damning testimonies. The gas station clerk, a nervous woman in her 30s, described aggressive body language and cold stares that froze my blood, her voice trembling as she clutched the witness stand. The victim, wearing an unnecessary neck brace for dramatic effect, claimed with exaggerated fear, "He said he could end me from 800 yards without blinking." I believed every word. The room's temperature rose, sweat beading on brows under the fluorescent hum, tension coiling tighter. But from the perspective of Harlan's distant relative, his nephew Mike Harlan, seated quietly in the back gallery, the scene evoked family stories of quiet strength passed down through generations. That scar on his hand, it's from the mission he never talks about, Mike whispered to a nearby reporter, his remorso building as he recognized the familiar gaze of a man who saved lives in silence, never seeking recognition or glory. Over 30 seconds of heavy silence followed Kane's inflammatory statement, tension coiling like a spring ready to snap. From reporter Lisa Grant's perspective, the courtroom felt electric, charged with unspoken energy, her pen scratching furiously as cameras clicked like suppressed gunfire in the background. Harlan didn't react, his breath even and controlled, the metal pressing against his chest like a vow unspoken, a promise kept for decades. Breadcrumb 2 emerged. Mike shifted uneasily in his seat, murmuring to an arriving veteran comrade. Bill Thompson, who had just entered through the back door, Uncle James's resilience saved men in that rescue. Why won't he speak up now? The judge hesitated, her gavel tapping rhythmically against the bench, sensing the growing unease rippling through the room. Kane smirked with biased confidence, pushing forward aggressively, his footsteps echoing like accusations with each pace across the floor. Perspectives multiplied rapidly. Emily's doubt grew into cautious empathy. Mike's remorso turned collective with Bill's knowing nod. Lisa captured every shift in her notes. And Bill, as a fourth witness perspective, whispered under his breath, "I've seen that calm before, only in combat." The escalation peaked with Harlan's silence standing as a fortress, but the breadcrumbs were cracking it open, revealing glimpses of truth beneath. 3 minutes into the proceedings, breadcrumbs began to scatter further across the courtroom, building toward a mini-revelation that would shift everything. From veteran comrade Bill Thompson's perspective, who had just settled into a seat near the back, the scene demanded validation. James saved us in that secret Fallujah rescue. His shots cleared the path when we were pinned down, lives owed to his silence and precision. Bill whispered this to Mike, the words echoing softly against the wooden doors, amplifying the collective remorso among witnesses who were beginning to sense something deeper. Harlan sat chained at the defense table, the metal's cool metal pressing against his skin like a sensory anchor from his backstory, a breadcrumb hinting at the classified mission where he rescued pinned soldiers under relentless enemy fire in the Iraqi desert. Kane paced obliviously, his prejudice still razor-sharp. "Ladies and gentlemen, don't let sentiment cloud your judgment. Relics like him are unpredictable, dangerous in their desperation." But juror Emily Carter leaned forward, her intrigue sparked by Harlan's unblinking eyes that held decades of untold stories, another breadcrumb weaving suspense into the air, thick with anticipation and the smell of old paper. Suddenly, at 9:15 a.m., the black SUV pulled up outside, tires crunching gravel in the parking lot. General Thomas Reed stepped out, his crisp dress uniform immaculate, and 4 silver stars gleaming under the morning sun, his polished boots thudding purposefully up the courthouse steps. From Reed's authoritative perspective, urgency fueled every deliberate step. "I owe my life to James's precision in that mission. It's time to set this injustice right." The courtroom doors swung open with a creak that sliced through the tension like a knife through butter, exactly 2 hours and 30 minutes after the initial arrest's metallic snap. Harlan lifted his head slightly for the first time, the metal shifting in his pocket, a mini-revelation hitting Mike like a physical wave, who gasped audibly. "That's the metal from the rescue op Uncle James never talks about, the one from Fallujah." Perspectives shifted rapidly like dominoes falling. Reporter Lisa Grant's pen flew across her notebook, capturing the unfolding drama with frantic scratches. Emily's doubt transformed into wide-eyed admiration and respect. Bill nodded solemnly from his seat. his hand rising in a silent salute of validation, and Mike's familial remorso turned to proud tears streaming down his face, whispering hoarsely, "His resilience saved them all, and no one ever knew." Breadcrumb 3 emerged powerfully. Reed approached the defense table with purpose, clasping Harlan's scarred hand firmly, murmuring loud enough for the front rows to hear, "Your silence in Fallujah was our salvation, James." The warm grip contrasting sharply with the cold chains, sending a visible ripple of shock through the assembled crowd. Kane blinked rapidly, his face paling to an ashen gray as prejudice met undeniable truth head-on, stammering weakly, "General, this is highly unexpected." The mini-revelation rippled outward in concentric circles, hooks, pulling the audience deeper into the unfolding truth. That's when everything shifted dramatically, suspense layering like gathering storm clouds over the entire courtroom. General Reed turned to face the bench directly, his voice steady and commanding with military precision. 31 years ago, in the scorching sands of Fallujah, James Harlan led a secret rescue mission under impossible conditions. My unit pinned down by enemy fire, communications completely dead, surrounded by hostiles on 3 sides. He took position on a rooftop, fired 12 confirmed shots in under 5 minutes, every single one surgical precision through brutal crosswinds, clearing a path through chaos and saving us all without uttering a single word of complaint. The room fell into hushed awe, the air heavy with floating dust motes caught in slanted sunlight streaming through high windows, the faint scent of old paper and polished wood mixing with rising tension that was almost palpable. From Nephew Mike's familial perspective, the backstory unfolded like cherished family tales passed down in quiet evenings around kitchen tables. Uncle James carried that medal home from the rescue, never once boasting about the 936-yard shot on a moving target that turned the tide of battle. His resilience was our family's legacy, passed down through stories. Harlan's fingers tightened subtly on the armrest, the medal's inscription, "For valor," pressing into his palm through the fabric like a tactile breadcrumb, layering deeper suspense into his hidden past of unsung heroism and sacrifice. Kane interjected desperately, his prejudice wavering but still clinging like a drowning man to driftwood. "General, with all due respect, this doesn't erase the threats he made. Relics like him still pose risks in civilian life. Their training makes them dangerous." His voice cracked slightly, the bias against elderly veterans starting to fracture visibly under the mounting weight of undeniable truth. But Reed pressed on relentlessly, eyes locked intensely on Harlan. He didn't wait for orders or permission. In the chaos of gunfire, screaming, and choking dust, he acted decisively, his silence becoming our salvation that day. Perspectives deepened with each revelation. Reporter Lisa Grant's notes flew across pages, her pen scratching urgently as she captured the emotional shift sweeping the room. Juror Emily Carter nodded slowly, her remorso turning collective with the jury's widening eyes and slack jaws. Veteran Bill Thompson whispered reverently to Mike from his seat, "That mission was classified for decades. James's calm under fire saved us, pure strength and discipline." Suspense built over 45 seconds of profound, almost sacred silence, the general's words hanging in the air like echoes of distant explosions, evoking vivid images of desert heat, acrid gunpowder smoke, and the metallic tang of blood from Harlan's past battlefield. What nobody in that courtroom knew was the full extent of the story. Harlan's silence wasn't weakness or stubbornness, but a shield forged in that rescue. The medal a symbol of enduring legacy and sacrifice. Kane shifted uncomfortably in his expensive shoes, his face flushing red as forced reflection crept in, prejudice finally meeting its match. Everything shifted when Reed did the unthinkable. He knelt. "You don't chain heroes, you honor them," he said firmly, dropping to one knee in apology before Harlan, the courtroom collectively gasping in shock. The trigger event exploded at precisely 9:30 a.m., Reed's 4 stars gleaming as he revealed the full truth. James's shot ended that siege with surgical precision in absolute chaos. 1 bullet, 936 yards, moving target, crosswind at 15 knots. Impossible by any standard, yet he made it look routine. Harlan stood slowly, extending a weathered hand downward, the metal now glinting visibly as it slipped partially from his pocket. The major revelation hit like a thunderclap. From Mike's perspective, tears flowing freely. That's why he stayed silent all these years. Resilience born from the rescue, humility from true service. Kane's shock transformed visibly into forced redemption. I was completely wrong about you, sir, he stammered, his prejudice crumbling like ancient walls, voice breaking with genuine remorse. Perspectives amplified in a crescendo of emotion, Emily wept openly, her validation spreading collectively through the jury box as others dabbed their eyes. Lisa broadcasted updates live on her phone, her voice trembling with the weight of the story. Bill saluted sharply from his seat, declaring loudly, "A living legend walks among us." And Mike embraced his uncle's arm, whispering through sobs, "Your legacy lives on in all of us, Uncle James." The trigger's impact rippled outward in waves. Reed stood, pinning the metal openly onto Harlan's shirt with practiced military precision, the metal catching light like a beacon of truth. Breadcrumb 4 resolved powerfully. The scar on Harlan's hand, visible now as he gripped Reed's shoulder, told its own story of sacrifice, shrapnel from that very mission, a permanent reminder of the price of heroism. Hooks resolved with emotional satisfaction as the judge stood, her voice thick with emotion. "Charges dismissed immediately. This court apologizes for the injustice." The gavel fell with finality, chains removed by Tom the bailiff, whose hands trembled with newfound respect and shame. Kane approached Harlan directly, extending his hand in genuine apology. "Forgive my ignorance and prejudice. You embody everything service means." Harlan shook it firmly, his scarred palm meeting Kane's smooth one, a quiet acknowledgement without need for words. The major revelation completed the arc. Silence broken not by Harlan's voice, but by truth's undeniable power, the room erupting in spontaneous applause that echoed off the walls. Reed addressed the crowd with authority. "Let this remind us. True heroes rarely announce themselves. They simply serve." Perspectives converged in collective recognition, the air electric with vindication, sunlight streaming through windows like divine approval. The metal's gleam, a symbol of restored honor and dignity, finally acknowledged after 3 decades of patient, humble silence. The resolution cascaded like a long-overdue wave of justice. Recognition flooding the courtroom in the revelation's powerful aftermath. With charges formally dismissed, the judge's gavel had fallen with finality at 9:45 a.m., the sharp crack echoing off the walls like a gunshot, chains clattering to the floor as bailiffs unlocked Harlan's cuffs with apologetic expressions. Reed stood beside him protectively, clasping his shoulder with genuine affection. "James, your silence in that Fallujah rescue wasn't forgotten by those who mattered. It's the mark of true greatness, the kind that doesn't seek recognition." Harlan nodded once, characteristically understated, the metal now pinned openly and proudly to his worn shirt, its gleam a symbol of restored honor. The air lightening with relieved sighs and the faint rustle of shifting seats as tension finally released. From Mike's familial perspective, the moment was profoundly cathartic. Uncle James's resilience finally seen by the world, that mission's legacy lives on in all of us, in how we serve others quietly. Kane approached with visible humility, his redemption complete and genuine, extending a hand with trembling sincerity. "Please forgive my prejudice and ignorance. You embody what true service means, and I was blind to it." Harlan shook it firmly, his scarred palm meeting Kane's, a quiet acknowledgement without need for elaborate words or speeches. Perspectives converged beautifully in collective recognition. Juror Emily Carter stood first, applauding softly with tears streaming, her validation spreading rapidly as the entire jury joined, then the gallery, creating a standing ovation. Reporter Lisa Grant captured the scene with shaking hands, her voiceover noting emotionally, "A hero unchained, dignity restored. This is what justice looks like." Veteran Bill Thompson saluted again sharply, whispering to Mike with pride, "This honors all who served silently, every unsung hero who never sought glory." Breadcrumb 5 tied everything together perfectly. The medal, once a hidden burden carried in shame and silence, now a badge of resilience worn openly, its weight lifted as Harlan walked free, boots thudding steadily on the wooden floor. Sensory details peaked in the moment. The warm sunlight bathing the room in golden light, the crowd's murmurs turning to genuine cheers, the metallic scent of freedom replacing the oppressive smell of chains and fear. The judge addressed the packed room with emotion. "Let this be a profound lesson in judging too hastily, in dismissing those whose service we cannot see." Hooks resolved with deep satisfaction. The world paused to see what it had missed for 3 decades. Harlan didn't rush out seeking attention. He turned deliberately to the jury, nodding in quiet thanks, his eyes meeting Emily's with unspoken understanding and forgiveness. Kane watched the exchange, visibly transformed, his former bias replaced entirely by genuine respect and humility. Mike embraced him tightly, whispering hoarsely, "Your story inspires us all, Uncle. True leadership through service." Outside the courthouse, sunlight hit Harlan's weathered face, the medal catching rays like a beacon of enduring legacy. Veterans lined the steps in an impromptu honor guard, saluting as he passed, their recognition a chorus of respect echoing through the small Georgia town. Mike walked beside him, carrying the weight of family pride. "Your resilience teaches us that true strength doesn't demand recognition. It simply serves." Harlan paused, looking back at the courthouse where injustice had nearly prevailed, then forward to the quiet life awaiting him, unchanged yet vindicated by truth's power. The lesson crystallized in that moment. Heroes walk among us in silence. Their service a legacy measured not in medals displayed, but in lives saved and dignity maintained through decades of humble obscurity. Kane watched from the courthouse steps, his transformation complete, whispering to Sarah Ellis, "I'll never judge a veteran's silence again. It might hide the greatest stories." Emily joined the veterans outside, thanking Harlan personally. "You taught me to look deeper, to honor the unseen." Lisa's broadcast went viral within hours, the story of resilience resonating across the nation, reminding millions that true leadership is earned through service, not demanded through rank or recognition. Harlan returned to his trailer, the medal placed carefully on a shelf beside faded photos of his unit. His legacy now acknowledged, but his life unchanged. Still rising at dawn, still walking in silence, still carrying the quiet dignity of those who serve without expectation of reward. The story ended where it began, with a man of honor, finally recognized. To everyone who typed honor and shared where you're watching from, thank you for recognizing those who serve in silence. Subscribe for more stories of unsung American heroes who prove that true greatness needs no announcement. See you in the next one.